Forgiving someone can be a hard thing to do. You know, you see stories on the news about people like the families in Charlottesville a couple years ago forgiving the man that killed their family members, and it makes you think, what would you do in that situation? Would you be able to forgive a man who did such a terrible thing and didn't even show remorse for his actions? I don't know if I would. Most anime tackling the theme of forgiveness tend to go down one of two routes. Either the characters immediately forgive those who have wronged them and move on, or they vow to seek revenge against them. Neither of those examples is really true to life, though. It can be very hard to forgive those who have wronged you, especially if you can't understand them. And that is the core message of the 2016 film from Kyoto Animation, A Silent Voice. I really recommend you watch the movie before you watch this video. It was kind of overshadowed by Your Name since they came out in the same year, so fewer people have seen it. A Silent Voice tells the story of Shoya Ishida and his involvement with his classmate Shoko Nishimiya, a young girl who happens to be deaf. Because she's different, Ishida and his classmates bully and harass her horribly through elementary school, finally forcing her to switch schools. Ishida is blamed for what happened, and his friends, who helped him torment Nishimiya, suddenly turn on him, and he becomes the victim of the bullying he himself once doled out. Flash forward several years, and we see that Ishida has withdrawn inside himself. He's no longer the carefree child he once was. We even learn he's planning on killing himself. Before he can, though, he runs into Nishimiya, now almost an adult, and makes it his mission to atone for his past acts of cruelty. It's a beautiful and captivating story about friendship, consequence, and most importantly, forgiveness. So what I wanted to discuss today was how each different character grapples with this theme of forgiveness. So what is forgiveness? It's a word we all think we understand on the surface, but it becomes a lot more complicated the closer you look at it. Jacques Derrida famously thought that forgiveness was paradoxical by its nature and therefore impossible. But we're not talking about him today. The dictionary defines forgiveness as the ceasing of feelings of resentment against an offender. But it's important to distinguish forgiveness from actions like accepting or justifying. To quote Lucy Allays, a philosopher at the University of California, quote, "What we take ourselves to be doing quite often when we think we're forgiving is actually excusing, justifying, or accepting. Those are all ways of coming to see that there isn't anything to forgive," unquote. For example, this could mean realizing that it wasn't really the dog that broke our mother's favorite vase, so since our friend didn't do anything wrong, there's no need to forgive them for a crime they didn't commit. Quote, "Forgiveness essentially involves seeing it not as justified, not as excused, and not as acceptable, and still not holding it against you," unquote. This is what Ishida is seeking from Nishimiya. Not for her to excuse his actions is okay, but to recognize that he's a changed person and not hate him for what he's done in the past. But Nishimiya forgives him immediately. Well, she doesn't really forgive him because she never blamed him in the first place. Every time he did something to her, threw dirt at her, sprayed water on her head, she always turned back to him with a smile on her face. She thought that these actions were her fault, that they were justified since she was a burden to those around her. Instead of blaming others or the world for her difficulties, she directs that blame inward toward herself. Thanks to her interactions with Ishida over the course of the film, she's able to see that she's not useless and not a burden. And that is when she can truly, finally, accept Ishida's apology at the end of the film and forgive him. She's even able to forgive Ueno, who beat her up only a week prior. Ueno's a very interesting character. She serves as kind of the foil to Ishida. She didn't receive the same backlash that Ishida did after their actions toward Nishimiya, so she never had to change as a person. It makes you wonder as an audience if Ishida would be just like her now if his friends hadn't turned on him. Ueno actually does change during her middle school years if you read the manga. She's cruel to Sahara once again when Sahara comes in second place behind her in a design project. Ueno starts bad-mouthing her and her work to the class, but instead of lashing out against her, Sahara actually stands up for Ueno later on. Shocked by this, Ueno strikes up a friendship with Sahara, and the two become quite close. But let's stick with just the film for now. Ueno's path toward forgiveness is one that is never quite completed. She blames Nishimiya for what happened to Ishida. She reasons that if Nishimiya had never shown up, then the class wouldn't have turned on Ishida and she would still be close to him. Because she was never told what she did was wrong, she grew up thinking that those acts of bullying were acceptable, which is what leads her to rip out Nishimiya's hearing aids upon running into her again. Later, when Ishida is in the hospital after saving Nishimiya from her attempted suicide, Ueno picks a fight with Nishimiya, blaming her for letting Ishida get hurt. She lashes out, calling her selfish for only thinking about herself and not how her actions would affect Ishida. But the person she's really angry at is herself. She feels guilty for following the crowd and abandoning Ishida in elementary school. Because she could only think about herself, she hurt one of the people she cared for the most. It takes a while, but near the end of the film, Ueno slowly begins to come around. Nishimiya wears her down, waiting for her day after day to try to make it right for Ishida's sake. And Ueno finally comes to see that Nishimiya truly cares for Ishida. I don't know if she'll ever be completely able to forgive her, but her trying to learn sign language at the end was a step in the right direction. Ishida is obviously the character who changes the most over the course of the story. The torment he received from his classmates helps him realize the impact his actions could have on others. He begins to understand Nishimiya a little bit. His new position as an introverted, withdrawn person allows him to see the world through her eyes, a world in which he's disconnected. When he meets Nishimiya again, he's given a second chance, an opportunity to make amends for what he's done as a child, an opportunity to understand her. Ishida is quick to forgive others, but struggles when it comes to forgiving himself. When Yuzuru, Nishimiya's little sister, posts a compromising photo of him, getting him suspended, he's not angry with her. He understands why she did it, and even though it wasn't right, he doesn't hold it against her, even if she still holds the past against him. Yuzuru spends so much time worrying about her sister that she's lost her own sense of self. In the beginning, she's very guarded, skeptical of what Ishida's intentions may be. However, she's one of the first people to forgive him. When she suddenly realizes he's changed as a person, she quickly warms up to him, showing just how desperate she was for someone to talk to. Ishida's guilt and inability to forgive himself are what drive him to attempt suicide at the beginning of the film. No matter how much he grows and changes, his classmates still view him as that obnoxious little brat who bullied the poor deaf girl. Thanks to that constant reminder, he's not able to move forward. His ability to understand others is also hindered by the past. He couldn't comprehend why Nishimiya wasn't furious with him for his actions, so he pushed her till she reached her breaking point. Flash forward, and he still can't understand or connect with his peers, so he locks himself away and doesn't talk to anyone. He feels like he's not worthy of their friendship. Slowly though, one by one, he's able to peel away the X's as people open up to him, and he in turn opens up to them. When he befriends Nishimiya, he begins to understand the struggles she has to go through. When she breaks down after her attempted suicide, talking about how she's pathetic and useless, he finally understands why she always flashed that smile at him. In the final scene of the film, when he's walking through the festival with his friends, Ishida's finally able to do what he's been incapable of doing thus far. After seeing his classmates change and develop in their own way, after seeing them forgive him after what happened at the bridge, he accepts that he's changed too. He finally allows himself to look up, open his ears, and be a part of the world once again. He's able to forgive himself and move forward. So, how did you guys like A Silent Voice? Which character resonated with you the most? I want to thank these wonderful people over on Patreon for making this video possible, and I want to thank the people on Twitter for picking the thumbnail for this one. I can be really indecisive about that kind of thing. Anyways, I've got a good one in the works for next week, so like, share, and all that jazz, and I'll see you then.